All right. So we are here to talk about the Endow Kentucky Tax Credit Program. I'm going to spend the first 10 minutes or so giving some background about the program and an overview of how it works. And then Jennifer's going to go into the details of how an Endow Kentucky gift can be used, basically how it can support your client's charitable goals, and how we can help your clients take advantage of this program. Before we get into the content, however, we do have to do a quick disclaimer. Hold on. Let's see, there we go. So just keep in mind that the information we're presenting today is just to familiarize you with this program and process. It's not tax, financial, or legal advice. We encourage you, as always, to consult your own personal financial professionals to decide if this tax credit program is right for you or your clients. So we're going to go ahead and get started with a little background about the tax credit program. This tax credit was created in 2010 by the Kentucky state legislators. You can find the language of the program at KRS 141.438. And it basically allows for Kentucky taxpayers to get a tax credit of up to $10,000 if they make a gift to a permanent endowment fund at a qualified community foundation. Now, this credit is in addition to your state deduction. So you're getting a tax credit and a charitable deduction. But again, remember, this credit only applies to gifts made to permanently endowed funds at qualified community foundations. You're not eligible for this credit if you make a gift directly to your favorite charity, and you're not eligible if the gift goes to a fund that isn't permanently endowed. So again, just keep those two important points in mind. It has to be permanently endowed fund, and it has to be at a qualified community foundation. When Kentucky established this in 2010, we were following other states that had this type of tax credit program. Montana was the first state that enacted this type of tax credit in the country, and there really are only a handful of states that have implemented programs like this. So we really are lucky that this is available for generous individuals in Kentucky who want to support nonprofits and our charitable organizations in perpetuity. The goal was to help communities build wealth, but especially to help rural communities, to ensure that these counties and areas have a source of income to help support their citizens' quality of life now and for future generations. When the program was first started, the legislators set aside $500,000 to be available for the tax credits. But in 2016, this amount was increased to $1 million. So there are $1 million of tax credits available every year.
Join the meeting.
There has been quite a bit of success. Hold on, I'm having a hard time advancing. There we go. The Endow Kentucky program has been very popular and very successful over the last 10 years. There are about 9 community foundations across the state of Kentucky, and they all participate in this tax credit program, and they all market this program heavily to their donors. At the Community Foundation of Louisville alone, donors have given over $12 million in Endow Kentucky gifts over these last 10 years. These gifts have helped to create over 100 different funds that support nonprofits throughout the state. We'll be talking a little bit more and giving some examples of these types of funds a little bit later, but they range from scholarship funds to help support students graduating from a particular school or a particular county, to a fund that supports someone's local church. And really the great thing about establishing a fund at a community foundation is that it can support whatever charity or whatever cause the donor cares about. And for this tax credit program, as long as the fund is permanently endowed, there really are so many options for your clients and for charitable individuals. And then finally, the program is in very high demand, which is just another indicator of its success. As I mentioned earlier, there are $1 million in credits available every year, and this $1 million is used up every year on the very first day the Department of Revenue starts accepting applications, which is July 1st. So this presentation is very timely because July 1st is right around the corner. And Jennifer is going to talk a little bit more later during our presentation about this application process and how the deadlines work. Now I want to get into the details of the exact requirements of the program and how the tax credit works. So we've mentioned this earlier, but first, you have to be a Kentucky taxpayer paying state income taxes. So if you are a Florida resident and you want to get the tax credit, but you don't pay Kentucky income taxes, this is just not going to work for you. You have to be paying Kentucky income taxes. Also, you can be an individual and get this tax credit, or a company. So businesses, corporations, any charitable entities, or businesses, they can all get this tax credit. Also, keep in mind that both individuals of a married couple can get this tax credit. So both individuals could apply and be eligible for the $10,000 credit. So as a couple, the couple could have a total of $20,000 in tax credits. So that's a great benefit as well. Now, I mentioned this earlier, to be eligible for the credit, the gift has to be made to a permanent endowment fund at a qualified community foundation. Now, keep in mind that permanently endowed funds are invested for long-term growth, and they typically only distribute a small portion of the fund balance each year to the nonprofit or the cause that they are meant to support. And again, the point of these endowment funds and the point of this tax credit program is to provide a steady stream of income forever. I mentioned that the endowment funds have to be housed at a qualified community foundation, and the Revenue Department recognized that community foundations are uniquely positioned to manage and handle permanent endowment funds, and that community foundations have a history of longevity to ensure that these endowment funds that are receiving these Endow Kentucky gifts continue in perpetuity. So that's why these Endow Kentucky gifts really are only available if you make a gift to a community foundation. The tax credit is 20% of the gift. And as I mentioned, the maximum credit available per taxpayer is $10,000. So if you want to be eligible for that maximum $10,000 credit, then the most you can really give is $50,000. If you apply for a $50,000 gift, 20% of that is the $10,000 maximum credit. Now, there's no minimum gift to get the credit. Just keep in mind that the credit is only 20% of the gift. So if your gift is $100, you're only going to get a $20 tax credit. But again, there is no minimum. Lastly, you don't automatically get this credit just by making your gift. You have to apply first and receive approval from the Department of Revenue before you make your gift. Now, I'm going to go over a couple of more points before handing it off to Jennifer. You get the state tax credit in the year you make your gift. Now, if the taxpayer can't use or doesn't need to use the whole tax credit in the year of the gift or the credit can be carried forward for the next 5 years. Now, it's not refundable. So if you applied for a $5,000 gift and got a $1,000 credit, but you only needed $500 in that credit, you can't ask the Revenue Department to send you a check for $500. It's not refundable, but like I said, you can carry it forward up to 5 years. So you can spread it out and take it over that 5-year period, however it's most advantageous for you. Now, earlier I mentioned that you can get the state tax credit and the state deduction, which is true. However, the IRS just passed a regulation last June of 2019, saying that if you receive a state tax credit for a charitable gift, you have to reduce your federal deduction by the amount of the credit you received. Now, you still get the federal deduction, you just have to reduce it by the credit you received. Basically, IRS is saying that a tax credit is a benefit, so you have to reduce your deduction by that benefit. So here's an example. If you apply for a gift of $5,000, that would make you eligible for a $1,000 state tax credit. But the IRS says you have to reduce your federal deduction by the amount of that credit. So rather than getting a $5,000 federal deduction, you can only take a $4,000 federal deduction. Now, even though this new development may make the credit program slightly less appealing, a tax credit is still a great thing. And you're still getting your federal deduction. It's just reduced by a small amount. And remember, a tax credit reduces your tax bill dollar for dollar. Whereas a deduction, while it's good, a deduction just reduces your taxable income. So if you have specific questions about how the credit versus the deduction will affect your specific return, again, I encourage you to talk to your own professional tax advisor for information about that. Okay, now I'm going to hand it off to Jennifer to talk a little bit more about the types of funds that can accept an Endow Kentucky gift at the Community Foundation and more details about the application process.
Thanks,
Jennifer?
Heather. Thank you. And it's good to see everybody. So, how to put those Endow Kentucky gifts to use in the community. There are a number of ways taxpayers can use these gifts. They all provide the same tax-wise savings, and they all provide ongoing support to communities for their needs in any gift amount. So first, a taxpayer can create a new endowment fund with a gift of $25,000 or more. And this fund can be tailored to their charitable goals. We offer a number of types of funds, as Heather mentioned, to accomplish this goal. Designated funds are very popular, and they benefit named nonprofits or otherwise tax-exempt entities like churches or some governmental entities. And if the donor includes the name of that entity in the fund, like say the Friends of Tom Sawyer State Park or the Friends of the Opera, they create a vehicle that can also garner support from like-minded patrons that will help increase the endowment that will benefit that nonprofit. Field of interest funds are also popular. They focus on an area of interest that's meaningful to the donor. This could be the environment or education or healthcare. And they charge the Community Foundation with distributing that annual distribution every year to nonprofits doing work in that area of interest in perpetuity. Mentioned are also very popular, and they're very customizable. Donors can direct these funds towards a particular demographic or an area of study or even their alma mater. We have over 100 scholarship funds at the Community Foundation. Donor advised funds are also eligible, and they're wonderful for teaching multiple generations about philanthropic values while continuing to send out grants all through the state to different nonprofits. Now, the key with all of these funds is that they must be permanently endowed. They are not permanently endowed. They are not eligible for Endow Kentucky. These second two options you see on your screen can be used for gifts of any amount. So donors can choose to send their gift to the Fund for Louisville. That is a competitive grant-making fund that focuses on the changing needs in Louisville. Similarly, the gifts to any of our 5 affiliate community foundations, permanently endowed funds, those are eligible for Endow Kentucky too. By supporting these funds, donors are giving resources to the community to address the challenges that arise over time. Finally, the third option, gifts of any amount can go to an existing endowment fund. And on the next page, there you go. This is just a sampling. This is a partial list of nonprofits for whom there is already an existing endowment fund at the Community Foundation that is eligible to receive Endow Kentucky gifts. Now, each spring we send information to individuals who have participated in Endow Kentucky in the past, and we include the application and instructions and a list of existing endowment funds that they might choose to send their gift to. And there are almost as many of these types of funds as there are donors because they really reflect the donor's individual interests. So to the extent those donors allow us to publicize the funds that they create, we include them on this list and we send it to everybody who's interested in participating in Endow Kentucky. The full list is running about 2 pages these days. So this is just a sampling, and you'll see that these funds benefit parks and schools and churches, healthcare services, various counties throughout the Kentucky, pretty much every element of a vibrant, thriving community, and that's the goal of Endow Kentucky. Anyone can make a gift to any of these existing funds at any time. And of course, if a donor does choose to create a new endowment fund, they can choose to have it listed on this page. All right, next, let's talk about the process of making an Endow Kentucky gift. You can really think about it in 3 main steps, and the first one is the application. The taxpayer provides some basic information in this application about themselves. They specify the amount of the gift they would like to make and the community foundation to which they will be making the gift. Now, if they send their application to the Community Foundation by June 29th of 2020, we will be sure to include it on July 1st when we scan and email all of the applications that we have to the Department of Revenue on the first day that they accept applications. Now the hard part for the donors, once they give us the application, they just have to wait. And this doesn't sound like a big deal, but you have to understand, we have already received completed applications from donors this week, and we just sent the applications out last week. In addition, if they've participated in the past, they're very well aware there are a few hard and fast deadlines that just can't be missed. So as July 1st approaches, we start to get some phone calls. Have you heard anything from the Department of Revenue? Is there anything else we can do? And the reality is nothing more can be done to advance this process until you get to step 2. By mid-July, the Department of Revenue sends out letters of preliminary approval. This tells donors what percentage of their gift has been approved for the state tax credit. And this is a triggering event. After this letter, but within 30 days, the donor must make their gift to the Community Foundation. The gift can be cash, can be a check, it can be stock, it can even be a qualified charitable distribution from their IRA. But it can't be made before the letter, and it must be made within 30 days of the date of that letter. Otherwise, the gift won't qualify. So please be aware and let your clients know if they plan to make an Endow Kentucky gift using stock or using a transfer from their IRA, they need to go ahead and let their broker know or let their IRA administrator know that this gift is probably going to be happening sometime in mid to late July, and it's going to need to happen quickly or it won't qualify for the Endow Kentucky tax credit. So let's look at the first step in a little more detail, the application. The writing on this I know is small, but I wanted you to see how simple this application is. It is just the single page. The Department of Revenue puts out a new application pretty much every year, and you can see this year up in that right-hand corner, there's the 2020 date in it. So this is the new application. The taxpayer provides basic information, including their Social Security number if they're an individual, or their tax ID number if they're a corporation. There's a space down below there where they indicate the amount of gift they would like to make, and then to the side of that, the corresponding tax credit that they're hoping for. And that'll be 20% of the amount of the gift. So because the credit is capped at $10,000, the most that they will ever put in for the blank for the proposed gift is $50,000. And that's per taxpayer, per application. Down below in section H, the taxpayer has to indicate the community foundation to which they will be making their gift. We try to pre-fill in as much of this form as we can for our donors. So in this one, you'll see that the Community Foundation of Louisville is already filled in with our tax ID number and our address and our phone number. Just below there, the taxpayer can indicate the particular fund that they would like this gift to go to. So that can be one of those existing endowments that we talked about, or a fund that they create. Below there are 2 spaces for signatures. The first one must be filled in for the application to be complete. The signature line below that authorizes the Department of Revenue to share with the Community Foundation information about the preliminary approval, including the amount of the gift. And because there's that really strict 30-day deadline between that letter and making the gift, this lets us help everyone who wants to take advantage of the program be sure to make that cutoff date. So the next step in the process is the preliminary approval of the gift. And you may be wondering, what about the letter is preliminary? Well, because there's a fixed amount available for these state tax credits, the $1 million, and because this is such a popular program, the Department of Revenue normally can't award the maximum 20% credit for everyone that applies for a gift. Instead, they usually approve credits in a pro rata amount for all the applications. Last year, the preliminary amount approved was 76%. So if we look at this in a concrete example, it helps make it a little more understandable. Let's assume the pro rata amount for the approval is a nice even 80%. If a taxpayer applied to make a gift of $10,000, they would be eligible for a credit of $2,000. With a preliminary approval rate of 80% of the gift, or $8,000, the state tax credit would be 20% of $8,000, which is $1,600. Now, that said, not everyone who applies to make an Endow Kentucky gift will ultimately do so. The program is really popular, and for that reason, we encourage taxpayers to only make an application if they are seriously intending to make an Endow Kentucky gift. But circumstances change, and sometimes they decide not to participate. Sometimes donors miss the 30-day cutoff to make their gift, and other donors may make a gift, but they might make it in an amount less than what they applied for. So the credit that they were approved for that won't be used goes back into the pool, and that creates an opportunity for the Department of Revenue to reallocate those amounts among donors who gave the full amount of the gift that they initially applied for, even though they didn't receive approval for 100% of that gift. So if we go back to our example of a $10,000 proposed gift that received preliminary approval of 80%, if the donor decided to go ahead and make their gift for the full amount, the $10,000 rather than the $8,000, and there's a reallocation afterwards of, say, 5%, now the approval of the gift goes up to 85%. So the gift will go up to $8,500, and the tax credit will go up to $1,700. This reallocation has happened pretty regularly for the past few years, so it has sort of become the rule, but it is not guaranteed. Okay, so next slide. Because this is such a deadline-driven program, let's take one more quick look at all of the important dates. So June 29th, 2020, if donors can submit their completed applications to the Community Foundation by this date, this gives us time to troubleshoot the applications, if there's anything deficient, to get that corrected, and also to contact any donors who expressed an interest in participating, but maybe we haven't gotten the application as the deadline nears, we can contact them so they can be sure to be able to take advantage of this opportunity. On July 1st, we submit all of the applications. We email them to the Kentucky Department of Revenue. We do that on the first working day of July each year, and this year that will be July 1st, a Wednesday, and we'll send them all in. Usually by mid-July, the department sends out the preliminary approval letters. From the date of that letter, the donor has 30 days to make their gift to the Community Foundation. Now, if they signed that second signature line that we talked about on the application, which authorizes the department to share information about the preliminary approval with us, including the amount of the gift and when the approval came out, we can help the donor be sure not to miss that 30-day deadline. Within 10 days of the donor making a gift to the Community Foundation, we provide proof of the gift to the Department of Revenue with a form called a Schedule Endow. The department then looks over the Schedule Endow, makes sure that it's accurate, signs off on it, and sends it back to the taxpayer for the taxpayer to use on their return. If there is a reallocation, there will be a second Schedule Endow, and the taxpayer will need to give that to their accountant as well. So, we've given you all a lot of information today, and we're happy to take questions, but we wanted to leave you with a couple of resources you might find helpful. And on the screen, you'll see the website for the Department of Revenue and the Community Foundation and my contact information. So please contact us if you need anything. We'd be happy to hear from you.